this note here, Marlon wrote this when he was in prison, and he said it to me. I just want to tell you that I am going to make you proud of me. Just wait and see. I love you, Marlon.
You know, I do work around gun violence. Y'all know that. You know, I went to prison for crime that involved gun violence. How did you feel as a mother and a father knowing that your son, your youngest son, was like on the news and police was around and it was about murder and it was about death and it was about people being shot?
Well, I just couldn't imagine that you were involved in it. I really couldn't imagine that.
And something really shocked you, hit you like a ton of bricks. You know why? Because I didn't see any signs in you that would happen. And then, you know, when I really think about it, I realized that there were signs and I didn't really pick up on it.
Like?
Because I trusted you and the company you had, I didn't see anything in them, you know, to indicate that they would be involved in robberies and things like that. Because the time when they had the thing and you got shot in your foot,
You didn't tell me
that was a
that?
sign.
So 16 years later after I was arrested, how do you feel about me, like how do you feel about that decision to take the plea of 12 years now, like 2015 as you look back on it?
Well, I think it was a good decision.
Yeah, I think so too.
I mean, you know, it's a situation where you paid something for the mistake you made. And it did good to you because you came out, you grew in there, went in a little boy looking for guidance, and you came out a man. So I think it did you some good.
How y'all feel about me now?
Oh, proud.
And you're doing well.
You did well.
In the chaos of prison, I became comfortable with myself. I don't know if I want to say the word transform or I want to say that I just evolved. I began to sort of accept like that person I was as a young person, that person that liked to learn and liked to help others and liked to teach. And so whether it be through me writing to myself in my journals, and at one point I also went through my religious phase in prison. That's where the shifts began.
Police need your help tracking down a man who shot a teen in East New York. Take a good look at the suspect here. Cops say a teen was walking along New Lots Avenue, approaching Pennsylvania Avenue, when he heard 2 gunshots. When he ran, he realized he was shot in the foot. He was taken to Brookdale. Gun violence to a lot of folks in neighborhoods like Brooklyn and so many other neighborhoods in the city is like the way of life for some folks. And that's a sad fact. It's a sad sort of reality that folks sort of understand gun violence, particularly younger folks see it as like a way of living, a way of manhood even, a way of survival, a way to deal with fear, a way to exist in a world that's very hard to exist in. People from the outside looking in just say, why don't they just stop shooting? Why don't they just go to school? Why don't they just get a job or whatever? Just sort of obscuring the fact that there's a lot of other things that's happening. And some folks don't have the time to look at that. Some people refuse to see that. And in law enforcement, because of their training and where they come from, they see everything as solely, we just gotta like stamp the problem. We don't care about necessarily why the problem's happening. We gotta get it out of here, so we don't really have time to think about all this other stuff. The heavy-handed approach is not what's necessarily working, right? The heavy-handed approach is what got us the booming prison system in the first place. We need to be like going deeper into right, really sort of getting to the root of why it's happening, because in the early 90s, people can just dismiss it as saying it was the crack era. Well, it ain't the crack era anymore. People still getting killed. And it's the same people that's getting killed. And it's in the same neighborhoods, on the same street corners, that the same people are getting killed in the same projects. Maybe I'm thinking about like what came first, the policing or the police brutality or the gun violence. And also I want us to be thinking about how can we approach this issue of gun violence without thinking that police is the only way to deal with it. Don't get me wrong, violence and gun violence is a horrible crime. I know that from being on both sides of it. But I think we have to be thinking about the internal capacity within our own neighborhoods to create the neighborhoods that we want. So instead of like thinking about what we need to stop, we need to be thinking about what we want to create in our neighborhoods.
We need to start with a conversation. First of all, we live in America, and America is violent.
Absolutely.
America breeds violence. America perpetuates violence. America was built on violence, and America stands on violence. So we need to understand that. And so as our children consume violence, what goes in comes out. So we have to figure out how do we stop the consumption of violence amongst our youth. That's one piece.
Today, I've organized a convening of folks who do work around gun violence prevention, intervention. Folks who don't normally get the opportunity to be in the same room to speak about what they're doing, what's going on, what strategies are working for them, and what strategies can be done better or can be used better. So we're having a conversation around that work, and what I'm proposing to do is to sort of like look into ways in which we can both reduce gun violence in our communities and police violence at the same time by what I like to call creating child safe zones.
I grew up in Red Hook housing projects, and on my block, there was this woman, and she was like an elderly lady. And when I talk about the beautification of that block, I mean, this is the same block like every other Red Hook block, but she planted flowers. She made ices for the kids. She fed the drug dealers. Like, when I tell you she controlled what happened on that block, as a 75-year-old woman, she controlled what happened on that block. There was no violence on that block. The trash was picked up. The hallways were clean. The elevators had no piss in them. When you're sitting on a block that's beautiful, you don't want to add trash to it. So I just wanted to put that out there, that things like that actually happen in communities that we're talking about, and maybe we should just pay attention to those types of people who are promoting this type of behavior and see how they're doing it. And sometimes they're doing it in a way that's not so much structure around it. It's just really with love. A lot of the times, right? It's like weird. Like, you don't even know that they're doing it. I see young men pull up pants, not to say that if you have your pants down low, you're a bad person, but I've just seen men do that when they see her or they're in her presence. There's something about her presence. I don't know what it is, but I would love to, duplicate that and try, figure out how to make sure that everyone in my community has that same type of aura.
When we're able to build a capacity, which some of you all are already doing in our neighborhoods, to sort of have ownership of their block, and not in a way we used to think we had ownership of it, well, I own that corner, but like you have ownership in terms of like you care for it. Like, you don't want this to happen in our block. Like, I think we have the potential to literally be what we need in our blocks. And I'm not gonna say police our block. I shy away from saying, well, then we could police our blocks. No, we don't need to be policing our blocks. The connotations behind the word, or the noun in itself, is very loaded in many ways, but also is like a very strong-handed approach to how we're dealing with things in our communities. And I don't think we need to be just focusing on that. We need to be thinking about how we can lift it up and how we can build internal capacity in our communities. And that's where this whole idea is like coming from, and you sort of experience that I keep having, and maybe somebody up there telling me to be thinking about this, and I don't even go to church. So I think the biggest challenge, what I foresee in doing this, the child safe zone or any remnant of it, is convincing people to think differently about how they view themselves in the community and their role in the community, and thinking differently about how the role of police can and should be shifted. How is it that we can envision a neighborhood that is ideal to us without law enforcement, but we can't seem to really think about how we can create this neighborhood in real life without law enforcement?